Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about how to come up with compelling content for your oral presentation. Now, we've already spoken at great length about how to come up with a topic, and you know how to make it intellectually stimulating and challenging and novel. And in a previous video, we spoke about how to create the thesis statement, which is the combination of the topic, your opinion, and the supporting points. Well, it's the supporting points that will help us to create irresistible, meaningful content for our audience. So in today's video, we're going to be focusing on how to create effective paragraphs or how to create meaningful, compelling content for your oral presentation.
Now, every paragraph must have three parts: the topic sentence, the supporting sentences, and the concluding sentence. Every paragraph must have these three parts. Now, the topic sentence is the main idea of the paragraph. It's very similar to the thesis statement, which I discussed in a previous video. It's the first sentence of the paragraph, and it's usually a general sentence that summarizes what you plan to talk about in the actual body of the paragraph. Then we have the supporting sentences, and those are the sentences that talk about or explain the topic sentence. This is where you're going to give the details, and the supporting sentences comprise the most important part of the paragraph. And what you want to do is show your expertise and your knowledge and your sophistication by using a variety of methods to develop the paragraph. You don't only want to do examples, because that suggests that you are an amateur, and nobody wants to look like an amateur. So you're going to do different paragraph development strategies. For example, you're going to use a topical approach. You can do that where you speak in terms of topics, or you can use narration where you're telling stories, or you can develop your paragraph by thinking in terms of cause and effect, or you may want to just do a spatial representation where you talk about things in terms of space. So like maybe, for example, you could be describing a room or talking about a room where you say on the left and on the right and to the north and to the south, but you want to think in terms of space. That's one way that you can develop your paragraph. You can also use chronology, where you talk about events that happen in the order in which the events happened. Or you can use definition. You can use an extended definition where you explain a concept by defining it. You can use illustration. You can talk about a process. You can do problem solution, and you can use credible sources, meaning that you're not just speaking from your knowledge, but you are going to summarize, paraphrase, and quote credible sources, especially if this is a college or university speech or beyond the college classroom. You always want to have credible sources so that your audience will know that you are credible because you have consulted information outside of your head. It's not just all coming from your brain, but you have looked at people in the field who are authorities. Now, when you're using credible sources, you don't want to just throw it in and say, according to so-and-so, and then you continue talking. There are actually 7 steps that you must follow when you are quoting, summarizing, or paraphrasing, but when you are using credible sources. And I have a detailed video where I tell you the 7 steps. I walk you through the 7 steps and I show you an example. So that video is how to incorporate quotations in your research paper or research speech. So once you have a speech, because in this case, I'm really speaking about public speaking. So once you have an oral presentation and you have to use credible sources and it's a research speech, you want to know that you're incorporating your quotations, summaries, and paraphrases effectively. So please have a look at that video so that you can know the 7 steps. Now, I like to tell people about Brian Tracy because apart from being a really exceptional speaker, he also has a strategy which I thought was fabulous. He speaks about the PREP, P-R-E-P. So he says that when you are developing your content for your body, first you must make a point, then you must state the reason or kind of give some contextual information or background information. Then you must illustrate, reinforce with examples. And then you must end it with your point of view. So it's similar to what we're saying, where you begin with a topic sentence. That's where you make the point. Then after you have made the point, you want to give a little bit of context so that the audience will understand why you said what you said. But then you want to show them that what you said, in fact, is accurate. And the way to do that is by illustrating or reinforcing with examples or going back to these different structures that I told you about, whether through narration, cause and effect, chronology, whatever. But you have to use a variety of methods to develop your paragraph. And at the end, you want to restate and paraphrase your point of view. So I like to tell students that when you think of the paragraph, you must think in terms of opening the door, which is the topic sentence, walking around a bit, which is the body or the supporting details, and then exiting and closing the door behind you. When you close the door behind you, that's your concluding sentence. So you want to not rush to each point. You want to make sure that you fully develop the point, make the point, support the point, and then have the concluding sentence. And then when you're finished with that, you say to the audience, I've just told you about this point. Now let me tell you about the next point. And that's the transition after the concluding sentence. Now the supporting sentences need to be a combination of strategies for the right brain and the left brain. Always want to include both sides of the brain when you're doing supporting sentences. So you have the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. Now the right brain is where you have the feelings, the stories, the illustration, the metaphors, the parables, analogies, evocative images. You talk about the benefits, or you have suspenseful reveals, as we always saw when it came to Steve Jobs. Anecdotes, humor, shocking statements, invitations to marvel or wonder. Once again, Steve Jobs. Now, when you have any of these kinds of supporting information, you are thinking about feelings and you're thinking about the right brain. But you also want to take into account the left brain, which is the logical side, where you have logic, reason, case studies, facts, data, evidence, diagrams, supporting documentation. So in each body paragraph, you want a combination of strategies that will activate the left brain and the right brain. You never ever want it to only be logic. And unfortunately, most times when I listen to speeches, I hear logic, logic, logic. We need logic, but we also need emotions. Now you remember that in a previous video, I explained that there are 3 components of a message. You have the words, you have the tone of voice, and you have the body language. Words are worth 7%, the tone of voice 38%, and the body language is 55%. You really want to keep that in mind. You want to remember Aristotle's 3 elements of persuasion. which we can use to appeal to our audience. We have ethos, which is when we're talking about character, credibility. And in everything you say, your audience needs to know that you are credible. And that is what we call the ethical appeal. Then there is pathos, where you try to connect with emotional content, as I just said a few minutes ago. That's the emotional appeal, because people need to feel in order for them to act. And then there's also logos, which we spoke about also. That's logic and reason. So we're talking about the logical appeal. And that's when we use external sources or data or whatever else we need. Every oral presentation needs to give us enough information for content and also for the emotions. We don't want to ignore any side of the brain. And all of that is the body. And once you're finished with the body, you're ready to move on to the concluding sentence of your paragraph. And it's the last sentence of the paragraph. And you basically finish it by repeating the main idea, not the same way you had it as a topic sentence, but you want to just sum it up so that it's final. And it's supposed to give you the final comment about the topic. Now, once you have all of that, you have the perfect body paragraph.
So, thank you for joining me, and I hope that made sense. And I hope that going forward, you will be more intentional when you plan the content for your oral presentation. And you'll keep in mind that you have to activate both the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. And you'll have to ensure that you give variety in paragraph development. So, until I see you in the next video, bye for now.